Um, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. And today we are joined by Sam Weya. Samantha, thank you. Samantha is the founder of Skika Afrika, and we're really excited to have you. Beyond that, she's an actuary, so it's really interesting to have people on who have backgrounds in different fields that aren't just the creative fields.
Yes, thanks for having me on the show, guys. I'm so excited to have this conversation. Hi, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So really, like we came across, I can't remember now how you shared Skika Afrika with us. But it immediately, we needed to have a conversation because it's such an exciting platform. So we'd love to know what was the story behind it, and how did you get to where it is?
Wow, okay, so I'll keep the backstory as short as possible. For those who want the extended version, I have some videos on the Instagram, or you can hit me up in some way. But basically, I think from an early age, I realized kind of the power the arts had given me. I was blessed to have those African parents who supported my creative, my creative side. In fact, my mom even gave me the option to drop out of LSE doing actuarial to move to drama school. So like they were really supportive of me doing the creative arts. And so I really wanted to empower other people who didn't have the same experience, and especially people who didn't have access to platforms to tell their stories. But then I realized I didn't want to do it in a nonprofit setting, because I felt like sometimes you spend so much time chasing donor money that you don't get to like do the work you're trying to do. And so I said, okay, what for-profit business can we create that kind of kills two birds with one stone? That's kind of allowing Africans to decolonize the narratives around African stories, but is also giving creatives the infrastructure they need to build sustainable creative careers, right? Because the reason African parents don't want you to go into creative industry, they're like, where's the money going to come from? How will you eat? How will you pay your bills? Where will you live? But that's just a lack of there being enough industry to allow you to build what is a sustainable business. And so, yeah, that's kind of the genesis around Skika. And for me, it's around the two concepts, right? So the infrastructure side, but also around the storytelling and African storytelling and African artists taking ownership of African art. Yeah.
And we really want to go into this because it's really important. You're one of the fortunate creatives. I was too, I think, encouraged by family to do what we love. But so many people within the community actually come to the community because they say that they want to show their parents that it's a worthwhile pursuit. I want to show them that I can make money, right, as a creative. So what are you doing as a platform actually to encourage that?
Yeah, so how I like to think about it, it's like centralized business management is where we're trying to get to. So we want to give creatives access to all the tools, the information, and the community that they need to build sustainable careers. Because right now, a lot of what's happening in the market, it's like, I have some friends who are creatives, we co-do products, but we co-do solutions. For making a film, I call my acting friends, I'm like, guys, I need you to do me a solid, we don't have production budget, but let's get on this, let's make some magic happen. Same thing's happening in the music industry, same thing happens in the art industry, where people are it's creatives relying on creatives. But we want to give people, there's some people who don't have access to that community. So the first element is we're looking at how can you get connected and plugged into a creative community that can help you build and create the art that you want. Then the next thing is obviously connecting you to job markets. Now, what's unfortunate, I guess, in Kenya specifically, I think the likes of Nigeria and Ghana and South Africa have kind of broken away from this mentality, but our market doesn't value our talent. And this is not just in creative industry. This is, I think, across the board. They'll value foreign talent before they value talent here. And there's crazy stats around royalties paid out to international artists versus Kenyan artists and things like that. But when we want you to access the job market as well, not just locally, but across the continent as well, because we've seen cross collaboration across the continent happening more and more. Even like on Karin's EP, when she was collaborating with artists in Botswana, so we want to be able to create this kind of cross collaboration and job opportunities across the continent. And then when it comes to like tools and where we're headed, so aside from like portfolio management and making sure people are properly curating their portfolios, because people don't learn that and people don't have the skill sets around that. I've talked to artists who come out of art school in Kenya or university programs that do art, and they're like, but I don't have a portfolio. I'm like, how is this not like the first thing they were like before you graduate? Even before you get your degree, you need a portfolio. So portfolio management. And some of the things we're looking at in the future is how can your fans support you? How can you learn about building sustainable business in the market? And then how can you access the people that you need around you, whether it's your legal support, your branding consulting, and your mental health experts who can help you, because we're always in our field, so we need that support. And so that's what we're looking at. How do we give you all the tools, the information, and the community you need to build a sustainable career?
Would you say you're dealing more with creatives who have undergone like some formal training or not? And is there a difference when dealing with, is there like a different approach, for example?
Yeah, that's a great question. So no, we're not specific to people who have gone through training. I mean, I've worked with artists who've self-trained really, and are equally as talented as people, who've gone through formal training or even more. And so it's not specific to that. The difference, I think, will be maybe on the e-learning solutions when we do get to starting to build our e-learning content and how that is positioned for the people who've had traditional training versus those who haven't had access to that. I think that will vary. But at the moment, when it comes to kind of the primary features which we've released in terms of connecting and collaborating and portfolio management, there'll be no difference in that setting.
So how, as a platform then, are you first of all understanding the markets, because you are catering to creatives, but you also are trying to pull in business for them, right? So yeah, how are you approaching that? And then equally, I think maybe it extends to like a question of features. Which features are you implementing right now versus holding off on some things?
Okay, so how we're approaching the two kind of sides of the market. So our central client is the creatives, right? So we want to believe we're the kind of space where whether corporates come and hire you, you'll survive as an ecosystem of creatives. And we want to make sure that that's possible, so that you can still get business management as creatives being at the core of the business, and we can still equip you and you can still be edified in that environment. So our creatives are our first customer. We call the others our secondary customers, yeah, because I think what happens in the market as well is corporations say when they're hiring talent, feel like they have too much choice, or if there is specific talent they're trying to look for, they'll just go to them directly, right? But when it comes to up and coming artists, they feel like they have too much choice. That's why they're willing to pay them in exposure. And so we don't want that to necessarily be the narrative, that be the driving force and the only reason creatives can work, right? We want to make sure that we can build a movement amongst creatives themselves and create kind of a unity in the industry that then pulls in the work as well, right? So so that now when any X corporation comes and says, I want to hire this artist and I'll pay you in exposure, they're like, actually, I've learned how to value myself better because I've been hanging around these creatives and we know what we're worth. So I think that's the approach, is that our primary customer, our creators. The rest of them, we'll pull them in, we'll try and create some competition amongst them, and try and make the experience of hiring creatives easier, but they're not necessarily our focus. It's not our focus is how can we build industry for creatives. And then your second question was
features. Yeah, how are you now prioritizing features?
Yeah. So our priority of features, again, with the same ethos. So our first thing is around community building, you being able to collaborate on work, you being able to like put together your own portfolio and connect with other creatives. That's what's there right now. And what we're working on at the moment, which should be out within the next, 8 weeks, is kind of our jobs and booking features, which would, Oh, great. Wow. So it's our jobs and booking features are what we're looking at now. Guys, people are so talented on this content. Just scroll up the feed.
It's a beautiful platform, like everything from the identity, the logo, the typography, all the artwork, the way it's presented, really like well done to
really
the team.
Beautiful. I love the math, actually. The math theme is something I'd like to know, where did that inspiration come from?
Great. So we have actually an amazing designer called Zach Adele who worked with us on the branding and even just on this initial design of the platform. And he is super talented. So I told him what we're thinking. I told him the thing around voice. And one of the things I first did when I moved back after graduating was I spent time building a network of creatives and building a focus group of artists that could help feed into how we were kind of co-creating the solution. So, he sent his initial, sketches and what his initial thoughts were. I had my ideas, but I was like, okay, let's tap into our creative community. What vibes with them more? And this mask image for me was like, it could become a central theme around a movement around how we're taking ownership of African narratives and kind of decolonizing that and moving away from the so-called single story, with the fly on the eye, as my friend likes to say, that, a lot of Western media might be obsessed with, and the Masai Mara, to like us being more complex and beyond that, right? So this really came out from Zach Adele, all credit to him in terms of creative direction, and was just fed into it, from the rest of our kind of creative community that we've been working with to co-sign what we're building here. That's the onus, and it speaks a lot to the element of us trying to be about African creators being heard. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what are your priorities now then as a platform?
So our priorities are getting funding. So actually we're in the process, that's where we're at. So we're trying to make sure that we can get funding within the next few months, so that we can get the right team around not just building the tech side, but also our talent management, making sure creatives are appropriately taken care of and their needs are being met in the right way. And so those are kind of our main priorities, would be funding and then getting the right people on the team to help us kind of move into the next phase as we release that. And then obviously the next couple of features, which is around jobs and booking and reviews as well.
So you mentioned that initially you're building that core of creatives, which is really great to hear, right? And we all need to collaborate and work together. And you also, I've heard you say somewhere that you kind of focus on education, tech, and mobilization of people. So how do those three kind of pillars for you fit into your plans?
Yeah, that's another great question. So I like to view, you rightly said, I like to view my career as like building solutions using education, technology, and mobilization of people to create sustainable solutions that help people deal with their everyday risks. So that's how I don't view it like I'm an actuary or I'm doing this. So I'm trying to be like, how am I building solutions with these three factors in this way? And how they feed into Skika. So tech, there's obviously the tech platform. It's more scalable, gives people access, which for us is important, allows people to get visibility who wouldn't otherwise get visibility. From the education point, as I told you, the onset was I wanted to build a performing arts school for kids, in marginalized communities. And then this is kind of where it has come. I mean, that is still a big part of the vision in the kind of medium to long term. And education for the creatives on the platform is also central to what we're trying to do, but not just like your Skillshare type of education, which I think is important in terms of upskilling on your skill, but like your business management education, your financial education, things that help you survive beyond having the talent, right? Things that allow you to make money and survive off of your talent is the education. And then mobilization. I think we go further together. That's something I fully believe in, fully live by. Always trying to build teams that are better than me at anything around me. I'm like, I need people who are smarter than me all the time. Those are the people I'm trying to put around a solution. And just allowing and shifting this mindset of like solo driven success to like more collaborative success. I know people get burned and have gotten burned in collaborations, people are distrustful and things like that, but I think we can shift, we can evolve in our emotional intelligence, we can do better and have a more kind of communal thing, which is actually really in our origins. Our origins are more community focused success than they are singular success. So yeah.
What are some, I feel like maybe from your process, there's been like an organic growth of ideas, organic growth of implementation of different elements. What are some things you've iterated over the course of creating this platform? What are some things that have changed with time?
Well, things that have changed is that I've gotten more patience than I ever thought I could have. I've been trying to release this platform for time. So when I first had the idea, it was like in 2016. I hadn't graduated, when I first scoped it. And then I went to my friend and he's a developer and I was like, will you be my CTO? I'll pay you an ownership. I don't have money to pay you. But I mean, the realities of not having access to capital and the funding structures for startups here in terms of, people want to see something, some kind of proof of concept. I was like, I don't have money. I also graduated and moved out of my parents' home. I was like, I need a job. I need cash. So I think I learned a lot more patience. I learned that people used to say it and I used to be like, yeah, I understand that. But I was like, this concept is so well built out. I built my focus group. I was like, I understand how, the industry, what the challenges they're facing. I'm like, this should be quick, Hiring developers was a nightmare. A nightmare. So yes, I've said I have my CTO who's my co-founder, but we needed a developing team. I think we stayed with our initial team for too long, with little results. So, I think making decisions a bit faster around getting the right team on board is important. And yeah, I think I've learned about recruiting. I've learned that actually running a company, the hardest job is people. Hardest job is people in terms of how to get the right talent, how to retain the right talent. That's the hardest job. The rest are details. So I think that for me has been the hardest process. And I think we're trying to be slow as a team in terms of how do we get the right team on board? How do we share ideas at the right time? I think that's another mistake I probably made earlier, was sharing too much too early with people too soon before I had anything, had materialized far enough. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
How do you balance that excitement then? Because we all, as creatives, really want to share things, and we've just put out the Eat, Design, Repeat community recently as well, and it's kind of for us it's as well in beta, right? We're just testing and learning from everyone and seeing what that becomes as well. So how do you kind of temper that excitement and balance showing your ideas to people, or explaining your ideas and knowing when they're ready?
I think there's a lot of wisdom attached to it. So you have your core group of people who I feel like should play an important role as sounding boards, and hopefully they have different ways of thinking to you. It helps to have people who are not so feelings led around you, who can be those sounding boards, right? Because they won't take your feelings running. They'll help you slow down and like check some facts, get into the details a bit, get you through some structure. And I think that's something like now our COO really brought to the team. And so, he's also came on as a co-founder like 2 years back now. And that's what he brings. He's like, slow down, let's think about the next step. Let's not jump 10 years ahead to, when we're producing films, let's focus on now. Okay, let's focus on getting the next 10 followers, So I think it really helps to have those people who are a little more thinking focused, a little more logical in their process, as opposed to like feelings led. I think a lot of creatives tend to be very feelings led, and they can help you slow down. Yeah, and so creating your kind of core group of people who you can come to as your sounding board, and remembering it's important to kind of protect that and protect the development of that in the process, to even just keep the idea sacred in a way. Yeah.
And you're also doing that with the community. You're not scaling too much. You're trying to cater to the people on there, right?
Yeah. So trying to make sure that you're managing how you're advertising. So we did, so when we released, we're like, okay, let's slow down, get the best people on board, get their feedback. So we're actually working on a couple of redesigns as well from a functionality point, as we kind of look to release the bookings and jobs features. Before you go, my parents were like, why haven't you told us what to post yet? Because, on Facebook, we'll get like 200 people coming to your platform. I was like, that's not what I need right now. I don't need 200 people to come today. They're micro-influencers on Facebook. So I was just like, no. Take it slow. Don't get too excited. Use the right networks at the right time. So you can do it justice and to the people who most benefit from the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So your knowledge as an actuarial scientist, it's really interesting to have someone in the creative space who's an actuarial analyst, right? You're an actuarial analyst. So first of all, maybe, I've heard a lot of people say actor when they hear actuary.
Oh yeah, I've had that.
So maybe let's clarify what you do and what the industry is, and then how can creatives learn from actuarial science?
That's a good question. So actually, I've actually had that. I've had people think I've said I'm practicing actuary, and they're like, "Oh, you're an actress?" And I'm like, no, but actually that was my other career path. That was my alternative, was to go that direction. So 2 in 1, kind of. So I think one thing I've learned from the actual profession that I think has kind of translated is more in terms of how you kind of price and understand different risks, which I think is not something you'd necessarily think about as a creative, but I've actually been really thinking around financial security solutions for creatives, and how that can be incorporated more. I think creatives don't understand the value of like a lot of things they have and how to secure that, right? So whether it's insurance around your property, like your lenses, if you're a photographer, or like even how can we move to giving more security around intellectual property for artists, right? We only look at it from a legal point, but how can we do it from a financial point? These are things I've been thinking about. I think creative industry doesn't leverage enough of financial security solutions, or vice versa. Financial security solution providers don't think enough about creative industry. Yeah. And creative industry is a big part of the market, and can really benefit from these kinds of things. Or even how the fact that a lot of creative industry is already community focused, and how can those communities, people are always working in little, collaboration groups. How can those communities take care of each other financially in certain seasons and kind of self-insure and things like that? So I think there's a lot around risks and mitigating your risks that creatives could learn from actuaries. But even just, I guess, now from working in the corporate space, I think there's a lot of learned around business management that creatives could learn from just general business management. And when having this conversation with creatives about how, I think going back to your thing about people who've been trained from, formally versus those who've been trained informally, I think it's even more valuable to be trained informally but get a business degree, as a creative, than it is to go to school for art per se, right? I think the business degree, in terms of you building a career, because you already have the skill as a creative, right? It's honing that and developing that you'll get from school, but you might not have the business mindset, which a business degree would actually bring to your career. Yeah.
how do you how do you present the value of creative to the business people?
Oh yeah. So, I find myself, I'm an actuary who in our business does things around branding, right? Because everyone's like, actuaries and people are not creative actuaries. I'm like, I'm grateful that I had access to creative, creative things and creative community that have brought this out in me. But I think I do it a lot in the product design side. And so when we're thinking around product, when you think about around user experience, user interface, I'm big on that. Trying to push the company to think more human-centered design. When I'm giving talks, I did a presentation for Actuarial Convention around human-centered design, and I'm caring about that, which for me is very much an innovation that's come from creative community and been birthed from creative community. And yeah, so I think I just push for a lot of the things that we're doing, plus think outside the box. And even just so I'll give specific to, like, say, the insurance industry. There's been an issue around copycat design. That's how our insurance market works, right? So someone does one thing, another company will go and take the same thing and repackage it, call it a different name, and just put some glitz and glam around it, but it's the same product with the same solution that's not going to work for the market. And so I've really been pushing and having conversations around how can we think outside the box in terms of how we're creating solutions, and create solutions that are not just adopted from, say, other markets or other insurers, but take solutions that are designed for the context within which we exist, which I think is a creative concept, right? How do you create what doesn't exist and present it for the solution that is clearly there?
I'm really interested in insurance. I think it's super valuable. Insurance doesn't give you any value until you need it.
It's true. It's true. That's true.
Yeah, and I highly recommend for creatives, if you have a camera or something, if it's the center of your business, to insure it at least.
Yeah.
Have you seen any interesting solutions? Or you said maybe not enough innovation in that space, right?
Not enough, but personally, I'm working on something. So hopefully in the next year or so, 2 years, we can be talking differently. So personally, I'm pushing for certain things. So hopefully we can see things emerge a bit differently. And I think there's a lot more tech forward and progressive-minded insurtech companies that have come into the market that are working. They're working to build solutions, and I think things will start to pop up in the next couple of years. Things will start to pop up, and really the traditional insurers will be shocked because they'll be like, "Where have you come from?" But yeah, I think things will start to pop up.
Good.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I'd like to know, you being like a female entrepreneur, an African female entrepreneur in a business that's not really that even pushed, what are some things that you would tell to other women who are coming into the industry, and what do they need to learn, and what are some things that could change perhaps for the future?
So the first thing I'd say is you need to get some allies, get good allies, male and female allies. So females who have bust through the doors and knocked down those glass ceilings, and then also men who are great allies to women, right? Who can recognize, who will not mansplain, and who will pull your seat. I think get yourself some allies of people who care to invest in you. The other thing I would say is actually sometimes just carry the chair and put it at the table and sit. It's like, don't think so much about how you'll come across per se. Sometimes just get yourself through the door, just as possible as it may be. Your network is your net worth, they say. So, also that is another thing that I would add, like make sure that you're putting yourself in the right spaces. But even beyond that, I think as friends of people, if you know someone is trying to do something as an entrepreneur, put their name in a room that they're not in, make sure that people know that if you walk into a space and you're like, who I feel could benefit from this space is so-and-so, say their names in that space and elevate the people around you and the community around you. And yeah, so That's what I'll be saying. And have audacity. Women, men really walk around with audacity. Have some audacity. Know you're it. We talk about imposter syndrome a lot as women. And I'm like, actually, know you're about it. There's that stat, and I think I said this recently. I was talking to my friend on Vibes Radio. Women will only raise their hand up if they're 80% competent. Men will raise their hands up if they're 20% competent, just generally as a general stat. Not a blanket, yes, stereotypes, yes. But don't cancel me, please. But yes, that's generally how things work. And so I would just say, have audacity, raise your hand. If you think you might know, don't be pre-embarrassed about the fact that you might not know. If you don't know, it's okay. It's okay not to know. And it's okay to get something wrong. Fail face forward, I guess, and then get back up and try again.
Have you got a story of either an example of what you just said, or where someone's actually helped you up and put you into a room or a space?
Yeah, so I think I'm surrounded by friends who do this. So recently, even last week, I was on Vibes Radio. My girl Surah Common, she was like, come through. This is something, a space I think we can have a bit of discussion. And it's just that consciousness, right? Around being like, look, I know women who are doing amazing things, and let me pull them into this space. I think, and just likewise on the male side, I think I've had the privilege of having, like, say, I have both my business partners are guys, and I've had male bosses who have, allowed me to be in a room, have given me credit where credit is due, which is sometimes a surprising thing. You're like, great. And even, I've had a female boss who's been the same way, who would be like, actually, this opportunity is more for you than it is for me. And I'll be like, wow, that's so much humility. I'm like, you never hear these things. So I think I've had that blessing, and I've learned from that in kind of the importance of being intentional about bringing people into certain spaces. So yeah, and then in terms of kind of failing face forward, I think when I first came, I didn't really know creative communities. So I'd been in school in the UK for 6 years. So part of the reason I decided I want to graduate and move back is like I wanted to connect with the community before I started building a solution that was not solving anyone's problem. So I used to go to events. I didn't really know people. I used to go to events and just be like, hi guys, my name is Samantha, this is what I'm trying to do. I don't know one. I'll just be like, hi, I think this might be a solution that works for you guys. Do you think so too? And it was so painful. And the first focus group I ever held, no one showed up. So it was like, because I was an open community member at Power 254, because they used to do like this open community member, you can come use a desk and work on whatever you're working on, use their spaces. So I was like, I sent out some stuff. I was like, guys, let's have a focus group of creatives. The time came, 10 minutes passed, 30 minutes passed, an hour passed. I was like, well, this has been uneventful. And then I sat and talked to like one of the artists, Cello, who's like super talented artist. And so I sat and chatted with her because she was sitting and doing some sketches. I was like, so what problems do you have as an artist? I was like, if we will have a focus group of one, we will have a focus group of one. But then I guess I learned how to restructure those kind of events to make sure that more people came. But starting with like, all your friends and family must attend. And then they must all share and say that we are attending. That's how you start.
They learn something, right?
It's so good I can relate with your process.
Exactly.
So
that's
like
forward.
being like facing all these like challenges and being able to overcome them, all this pressure, I can imagine people are expecting you to deliver. How do you deal, when okay, I need to calm down a bit? How do you deal with your mental health?
So for me, you'll hear me say this like 1,000 times a day, is like community is a big part of me kind of having good, like having structures around my mental health. I have the most supportive brothers and sisters, shout out BKS. If you know, you know. So they are super supportive. They're always sewing into me. Even if I fail, they're like, you succeeded. You know, even if I fail, they said, you succeeded at sailing, sis, you'll get back up. And I think I'm really blessed to have that. And a group of friends who are equally the same, right? Who will be like, what do you even mean? Why are you even doubting yourself? And they'll always encourage me, and they're always supportive, who big me up, who big up my successes and not allow me to talk negatively to myself. So that is a core part of that. And then I think I've learned how to be effective around boundaries, not in like the in the kind of buzzwordy way. Like genuinely, I'm so hopefully my community will say the same thing. I'm so on purpose about my boundaries, which spaces I'm allowing myself in, who I'm allowing to feed and sow into my life. I'm like, if I don't want to be in a certain space, I'm like, I can't deal with this kind of conversation. I'm not going to try and be there. And so, yeah, so being on purpose about that. And that comes from understanding yourself, right? I think one place I'm grateful that I managed to get to pretty early on is understanding what my strengths and weaknesses are and getting comfortable with my weaknesses as like, this is a part of who I am. Like, I hate admin. Why am I trying to make myself an admin person? Let me hire someone who can do admin better than me. What am I trying to prove? You know, I already have strengths. Let me run with my strengths. And it's not like an excuse not to grow in a way that's kind of like a kind of a comfort in that, you know, it doesn't matter that I can't do X, Y, Z. That's not what my talents are. That's not what I'm about, you know, but it's not an excuse for you to then be like, I know people say this with regards to like people being with like their horoscopes being an excuse not to grow and being like, I am just so-and-so. Let me not pick on any specific horoscope. I don't know anything about any of them, you know? So it's like, no. That's not an excuse for you to treat people like trash, you know, do better. But like, you know, in a way that's like, okay, I'm not trying to convert weaknesses into strengths, but I'm trying to shine on my strengths as well. Is a thing that I think is important.
So have you got any tips for creatives, current tips? Because these things always change, right? But from your experiences.
Currently, I think it's been a hard couple of years, really. We're going into year 2, really, of this COVID life, right? Especially with creative community have really been hit in the last year and a half, with gig economy kind of taking a bit of a dive and things. I think there's what I'd advise is just like, I don't know what as an authority, I don't know what authority I have to advise, but from my personal opinion, there's something to be said about, you know, just trying to understand yourself and why you do what you do is important. It's such a core part of kind of driving you through those seasons that are so impossible. I had an incredible conversation with Mugambi, who's an actor, last year, talking about that and talking about how, you know, he was redefining success in terms of what does success look like for him post-COVID versus how it used to look pre-COVID. And I think as we kind of come out of this season, creators need to be really asking themselves, what does success look like post-COVID, right? Has anything changed for how you viewed success before and after COVID? And, you know, how are you going to take active steps towards achieving that version of success, as opposed to falling back into habits? You know, humans were very fickle. We really forget. You know, we'll go through this, but let me tell you guys, in 5 years, we'll forget. We'll forget we went through COVID and we live our lives the same way. All the lessons people learned, all the self-awareness people collected in the gutter. So how do you build structures now to prepare yourself not to let go of all the kind of lessons I think that have come out of the season? And it's a pre-preparation thing, because you'll go back, the clout will come back, the culture will come back, and you'll get back into old habits. But how do you make sure that you're building structures now to allow you to kind of move and grow in the direction that you've learned about, you know, through the season? Yeah.
What has it taught you?
So what's success for me?
First of all, I wanted to ask, what has COVID taught you? What has
COVID?
What don't you want to forget? The lessons you don't want to forget from the pandemic.
The lessons I don't want to forget from the pandemic is that, I know people used to say this, but like, guys, invest in the people around you that, you know, are building you up. Invest in them, you know, invest time invest at least your time in them, not just your monies, invest your time building each other up, understanding what challenges you're facing, understanding how can you help each other move forward, because there's great power and strength in that. I think that's probably my relationships are the one thing that prospered extremely in COVID, because of how we were able to bond and connect beyond just, beyond just the life of just being on the outside, as we call it, the life on the outside. I think that's the one important thing that I've learned, is how it doesn't matter what crisis work brings to you or what like opportunities work brings to you, kind of bring it back, hone it back, and remember that these people, and get them to hold you accountable for it as well, right? The standards and things that you've set for yourself when it comes to sewing into that community. I think that's I told you I'll say community 1,000 times. My friends accuse me of this all the time. I told you I'll say a community like 1,000 times, because like
yeah.
It's the center. The word community is like at the center of everything.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say.
What are some movies you've watched lately, or some hobbies you have?
Oh, hobbies. Movies, maybe series. I watched Lupin recently, the French series on Netflix. I hadn't watched that, which was good. Book, I'm reading my personal MBA, which is an interesting read because I've been thinking about going to grad school. And that is basically saying grad school makes no sense. Even though I know that in theory. I think the reason I'm trying to go to grad school is trying to be like, give me that Silicon Valley money and do something with it. But yeah, so that's the book that I'm reading. And hobbies that I have, I've been doing gymnastics with my little sisters. So my sisters are 9 years old. Guys, I'm a grown-ass 27-year-old woman who has started to do cartwheels. I haven't done them since I was 10 years old. I was like, I'm doing my backward bends, trying to do backflips. It's been an adventure. Okay, so I never used to be the kind of person who could do something that's absolutely crap at and you see the journey like through. I'd be like, let me start with a basic level of talent and build from there. But I am trash at gymnastics, bad, but I'm still pushing through, and they really celebrate my small wins. And I'm like, oh guys, thank you. So my mom gets a coach who comes on Sundays and we do an hour session. And it's so thrilling. And I get so excited. I'm like, guys, look at me, I'm doing a flip. And so little joys. And there's something about doing things with kids that is kind of like very humbling. And that's been the greatest hobby I've picked up this year.
That's awesome.
So you mentioned that I watched your Zero Chills TV interview. And you mentioned that you're aiming for that backflip. So when should we expect the backflip?
We're looking at the end of the year, November. It's their birthday. So it's my sister's birthday in November, and we're meant to do like a routine, right? So that's the target. The target is that I want to do the routine. Maybe I'll do a back handspring as opposed to like a backflip in the air, but we're trying for one of the backwards things. One of the backwards things.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna be joining your training now.
And okay, personally, I found doing things backwards is a bit easier than doing things forwards, because I feel like you don't see what's coming. So you just like go. Whereas when you're going forward, you're like, the floor is here though, I can see the ground. Which I don't know. I don't know what it says about me, because people usually have the opposite kind of experience.
Yeah. For me, it would be, I think, opposite. I'd be more scared of a backflip than a forward flip.
No, I'm trying. I'll try a cartwheel soon.
Yeah, do it. I really encourage it.
So what, from kind of helping, sorry, my team, I got a phone call. From helping each other grow and build, all the things that you're doing to do that, and mobilizing people, what kind of knowledge can you pass on to other people who want to do that as well?
I think firstly, remove yourself from being the center of the world. Like that's the first thing. Like, where I think we live in a world that's very pushing us to be self-focused. I mean, self-love is important, but not like in the way that can become very egotistical and put yourself at the center of the universe. I I think removing yourself from being the center of the world, like taking your ego aside and being like, this is not about me, this is about someone else, I think is the first thing in being able to invest in someone else's growth. Because as long as you're thinking about yourself first, then in that setting, then it gets hard to properly invest in other people, which I think is a bit countercultural in a way, because the self-love narrative can become very self-obsessed narrative. But yeah, that's what I'd say is the thing that I would encourage people to do.
So how do you then ensure, if you're putting yourself and your ego to the side, how do you ensure that you're taking care of yourself as well? That mental health stuff.
Yeah. So I think it's a balance.
You're feeling your own worth.
Yeah, I think it's a balance. I think there's a wisdom in terms of who you're investing in. So you're not investing in just any old body, you know. There's a wisdom in terms of building the right kind of people around you that, you know, are gonna equally give you that kind of respect, right? And it's not easy. It's very much a benefit of the doubt thing, because we are human beings at the end of the day. Some people will let you down at some point or another, but not because they're being malicious in a way, right? Because we're all dealing with a different baggage. We're all going through life, and we're all, you know, have had different experiences with different traumas, right? And I think even from a mental health point, giving people, and this I guess people tend to learn in a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, if you take yourself out of the situation and try and look at it more objectively, you're able to give people a lot more grace. You're able to be like, actually, this was not about me. this attack or whatever felt like it was a negative attack on my mental health was not actually about me. There's this other thing this person is going through. And again, that's not an excuse for people to treat people like trash, but I think it just, you know, makes your life less stressful to think that, you know, it's not actually about me. Someone was not attacking me because it's about me. It was really, they're dealing with their own traumas and have had their own stresses of the day that are feeding and being projected onto me at this time. And setting up those kind of separations between what is kind of objective truth versus what is perceived truth is, I think, an important balance to maintain for you to be able to balance kind of how do I protect my peace versus how do I invest, how do I put my ego aside? Yeah,
that's really true. Sometimes you might meet someone in the wrong situation and you'll get the wrong kind of impact, where if you'd meet in another situation, you'd be totally fine, right? Whether it's at the traffic lights and you're beeping at each other, that sort of thing.
So I mean, for yourselves at Nairobi Design Week, I mean, we've talked about this. I think, where do you see yourselves kind of growing as a community as well? It'd be good to grow into each other, I guess. We're building collective infrastructure.
Exactly, and that's exactly. So something we do is every time we see someone doing something really amazing, we always try to support that, of course, because if people can be better than you at doing something, then you want to work with those experts, right? Whether it's ticketing, API, or whether it's a way to have creatives collaborating. And I'm really excited to talk as well further down, like how are creatives going to be collaborating, right, in coming years, especially since this kind of digital transition that we've just been thrown into has been sped up so much. So what we're really doing is trying to document the industry much better as well, and trying to document that impact and show, first of all, a lot of people are doing amazing work, such as Heva Fund, of course, in documenting the entire creative industries. And if we can kind of be a part of contributing that to that would be really great. And something that is maybe an ambitious goal, but we'd love to work with, because we've actually spoken to other cities within the network, is the UNESCO Creative Cities. For Nairobi to become Africa's second design city of culture. So that would be really
that's
really
amazing.
Great. And hopefully once people are actually moving around the world more, that would actually bring in more value with tourism as well. So things like that. But really, we're all about collaboration as well. You know, we call ourselves a community design studio because we take on projects, and we're trying to create our own projects as well.
Yeah.
So increasingly we're trying to do those projects of our own and launch things. So an example of that might be Vision for Waste, which is kind of a few years in the making, but it's hopefully coming to fruition in the next 6 to 12 months, which is recycled plastic eyewear. And in fact, we have a sample that's come from Spain. So
I love this.
These are made out of recycled plastic. They've come from FOS Barcelona, from Togetherness. And they made fully out of recycled plastic. And there's another pouch that comes with them as well here.
That's amazing.
And so what we really want to do is manufacture these in Kenya. And this involves open source precious plastic machines. So those are already in existence here, actually. And then bringing in the molds for these glasses. And then, first of all, that we have a partner, an eyewear partner called the Urban Tortoise, who bring in all sorts of frames into Kenya. But really, this project started when they came to us and asked about, could we manufacture eyewear locally? And this is this is kind of the path that we've chosen to go down so far.
That's really cool. I really love that.
And hopefully that will encourage more people to manufacture their own products locally. It's not just from an eyewear perspective, because really this is more about providing eye care as well to the larger population, which is really in short supply, and then the plastics manufacturing ecosystem as well.
Oh, amazing. That's really dope. Really, I really like that. Let us know. We'll talk offline. Let's see. I see now you're not going to get rid of me. Like Michelle did a introduction on LinkedIn, and now we're like
okay, thank you, Michelle, then. Arwa, for introducing us. And she does amazing work as well. Really incredible work that we shared before.
I don't know if Adrian has asked this question yet, but what do you think is the future of the creative industry in Africa?
Oh wow, amazing. I think we're going to be so dominant. I think we are going to be at the forefront of defining culture. And I think you can see that, right? You can see that in terms of how Africa, and that has been the case. I think now the difference is we are at the root of a lot of creation, of a lot of modern day media and entertainment and arts and culture. A lot of it is rooted from African roots. So as we continue to kind of dig deeper in understanding our roots around the arts and culture better, as we grow and take ownership, as we realize that we are valuable as artists, I think we're gonna just become better owners of setting trends and defining certain standards around culture and just owning our stories more. And I think in the creative industry, in the power of addressing narratives, will help shift things like policy for me, which is a big thing about storytelling. I feel like there are no better people to shape narratives than creatives, right? That's why media is always under attack, because creatives can define everything from politics to like what shoes people are wearing, and there's so much power in that. And I think so as there's more infrastructure and kind of more unity created around creative industry, I think we'll see shifts beyond just creatives being able to do them as full-time jobs, or like enough creatives being able to do it as full-time jobs, to even how we're shifting policy and how we're kind of giving Africa a voice on a policy side, right? Because our stories will just become more visible and more central to things. And you can see that with, the publishing houses are coming in, you have Universal Studios, Sony, Netflix are in. So we need to make sure that they're not setting the tone for how those stories are told. We need to make sure that, creatives are at the center, and African creatives are at the center of how that's happening. Yeah.
I think that's like a perfect ending. I just wanted to say that I just logged on to the Nation website, nation.africa, the last few days. Check out the new brand identity. The typography, the colors are incredible, and it shows what creative can do for a brand.
Yeah, exactly. Amazing.
We had a synesthesia event today.
Yes.
Just from it today, actually, the whole day. Synesthesia in
Africa.
I've been able to meet amazing people
Oh,
throughout the
amazing.
whole world. Beautiful, amazing speakers. So that's been a really highlight for our day today. Just being
Oh,
able
wow.
to understand what is synesthesia, which is a neurological condition.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Adrian actually has synesthesia.
Oh, you have synesthesia? Oh, he's fighting
Yes.
color.
So for those who don't know, synesthesia is a neurological condition that means that your senses connect in different ways. For me, it's I see letters, numbers, and music in color, and words, and so different letters and so on connecting and forming different colors in my mind.
What's
And so
Samantha?
Samantha's yellow, always been
Wow.
yellow, like straight up, yeah. Well, it's got like some oranges further down and green. So it's kind of like, for me, like I can see it from afar, and then when I zoom in, I can see more detail, right?
Oh, wow. That's really wow. I'm
Because
fascinated by that.
every letter has a color, and then when you combine those letters, there may be like a dominant color of one letter within that word.
Yeah,
for example.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that's really dope. Life is colorful.
Yeah. So ask your friends if they're synesthetes.
Yeah, I've never met a synesthete, but I've been very fascinated by synesthesia for time, right? I feel like I learned about it from a TV show. Someone did, probably a medical show. I feel like maybe it was Grey's Anatomy. I feel like that's something they could have done at some. I feel like I learned about it young from a TV show or some documentary. It's like, whoa.
We lost
We
you a
lost
bit.
you?
Oh, hello.
Oh, yeah, got you.
Yeah. So I feel like I learned about it from a TV show, and I was like, wow, this is fascinating. But yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you.
So where do people go to check out your work personally, find you, contact you, and then Skika Afrika?
Okay, so you can follow our Skika Afrika. I'm very off the socials. I should probably build a media brand now, but so you can find us at Skika Afrika on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and you can go the easiest way to log onto the site if you're trying to set up a profile and build your portfolio on there is to probably go through the link on our Instagram page, but it's beta.skikaafrika.com, and we're reclaiming our languages. So Africa is with a K. Come on, come on, somebody. So yeah, so it's SKIKAAFRIKA. Yeah, that's that. And then for myself, you can look for me as, what's my Instagram handle? Weya93 on Instagram. You can follow me. I like it's really, really. That's why I hired someone to do social media. You see, don't try and make me miss this step. So you can find me on there, but you can also, if you reach us through the Skika Afrika pages, I'm happy to connect. Oh, you can find me on LinkedIn, Samantha Weya, and I'm happy to connect with everyone.
Samantha, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you
awesome.
so much. Thank you so much for having me here today. And thanks, guys, for listening to all my stories.
Oh, we've
You
loved
could
it.
listen the whole day.
Yeah, we're gonna chat more.
We have to chat
we're gonna
more.
chat more.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Thanks, guys.